Making the Word document accessible. To make the existing Word document accessible, there's a few key things that we're going to need to do to this document. The first thing we want to do is we want to assign headings to text in the document. This will ensure that that heading text maps to an appropriate tag when the PDF file is exported to the PDF format. We also want to add alt text to graphics in the document. Any graphics in your document need to contain alt text so that they're properly described when being read by assistive technology. We want to artifact any elements on the page that don't have any value. This can be graphic elements, it can also be header and footer text, as well as other items as well. And finally, we want to properly handle the tables in the document. The document we're working on today is particularly unique because it has tables, but we're really not going to leverage those tables other than for visual appearance. So here's the tuition form that we've been working on. And the first thing I want to do is open up my styles panel so I can see the styles that are currently applied to the text in my document. To do that, I'm going to come up here and make sure I click on the Home tab. And then in this Styles section, I'm going to click on this tiny little icon in the lower right corner, and that's going to open up the Styles pane in my document. And the first thing I want to do is click in the text up here at the top of the page. Now, if we look over here in our Styles panel, you can see that this text is being formatted using a style called Title. Now, this particular style is a little bit tricky because in newer versions of Word, the title style will actually map to an H1 tag. But if you're using an older version of Word, it may not do that. So for that reason, I'm actually going to change the formatting of this text so that it maps to a different style. So again, with my cursor clicked in this text, I'm going to come over here to the Heading 1 style. The nice thing about Microsoft Word is that if you use the default heading styles, they will automatically map to the appropriate tag in the exported PDF file. So for example, if you use the Heading 1 style, it'll map to an H1 tag in the exported PDF. Now, if I hover over the Heading 1 style right now, you can see that the Heading 1 style does not look the way that I want it to. And if I were to click on this, you're going to see that it changes the formatting of the text on the page. That's not what I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. What I want to do is I want to come over here to this Heading 1 style, and if I move my cursor to the far right and I click on this arrow, I can choose Update Heading 1 to match selection. And when I choose that option, you're going to see in my Styles pane, Heading 1 now looks like the Heading 1 text on the page, and the other benefit is that the Heading 1 style is automatically going to map to an H1 tag in the exported PDF. Now there are some other headings in this document. You'll notice that we have a heading for Employee, for Authorizing Supervisor Manager, and Human Resources Director. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in the Employee text, and you can see that that is being formatted using a style called Table Paragraph. Well, I would like that to output as an H2 tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the Heading 2 style. I'm going to click on the arrow to the right, and I'm going to choose Update Heading 2 to match selection. And now Heading 2 appears the way the text was appearing on the page. Now to finish this off, I'm going to click in the Authorizing Supervisor Manager text, and I'm going to click the Heading 2 style so that that text outputs as an H2 tag. I'm going to do the same thing to Human Resources Director, and finally to Human Resource Consultant. And now that's going to ensure that the text in my document is outputting appropriately. Now the other thing we want to think about is that if we have graphics in our document, we want to make sure that we add alt text to those graphics. Now, this particular document does not have any graphics in it, so I'm going to simulate the appearance of a graphic. And I'm going to go to my Insert tab, and I'm just going to insert a shape. I'm going to insert a rectangle here. I'm just going to draw this up here on the page. So this rectangle is currently representing what a graphic would do on your document. And to add alt text to this object, you can right-click on it, and you'll see that there's a submenu item called View Alt Text. And if you click on that, over on the right, you're going to have a field where you can enter alt text for that graphic element. So I might type something here like tuition reimbursement logo, something like that. And what that'll do is this object is now going to be output as a figure, and the figure will have this alt text applied to it. Now, sometimes you may have graphic elements or visual elements that you do not want to be read. Maybe it does not have any value, but it's part of the document. In cases like that, in the alt text panel over here, you can also click the Mark as Decorative checkbox, and that will cause this object to not be read by assistive technology. So that's another way that you can get an item to not be read when users of assistive technology are reading the document. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we really don't want this on our page. But the one thing I do want to point your attention to is way down at the bottom, we have a line of text that is basically kind of repeating the title of the document up here. And then it simply has the date over here to the right. Now, this is what I would refer to as a footer element. And traditionally, for accessible documents, the footer you do not want to be read by assistive technology. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight this whole thing, and I'm going to cut it. And then using my cursor, I'm going to double click on the bottom of this page. And you'll see that this takes us into what's called header and footer editing mode. We can see the header and footer on each page. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste that text into the footer, right? So that the footer element is now appearing at the bottom of the page. And you can make some adjustments to this if you wish. But basically, this is now causing that element, if I just double click somewhere else to get out of header footer editing mode, what that did is that footer is now going to automatically get artifacted because I put it in the footer area of the document. And the same would apply if I did that to the header. Now, finally, I want to talk about these tables on the page. Now, if I click in one of these tables, when you click in a table in Microsoft Word, you're going to see up here at the top, you have this button that says Table Design. And if you click on that button, it's going to reveal in the ribbon properties for your table. And way over here to the left, you'll see that we have header row and first column. Now, normally in a table, you would want to define a header row and or a first column for that table. In this particular situation, these tables are honestly temporary because, as I mentioned in the previous video, these tables are being used more like a layout table. Basically, what that means is the table is being used strictly for visual reasons. As I mentioned before, because this table has a variety of 1 cell in a row, 3 cells in a row, 2 cells in a row, it's not going to give the user a consistent experience. So for this reason, I'm actually going to turn off the first column and the header row in these tables. And in a later video, I'm going to show you why we did that. And I'm going to show you how we're going to linearize those tables and basically not leverage the table element in the document. We're basically going to change it so that the elements are going to be read. They're just not going to be read as a table. Now, a few more things I might want to do to clean up this document. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and show my hidden characters so I can just kind of see how this document is built. And you'll notice like right here I have an extra return. The problem with those is that when the PDF file is exported, that empty return is also going to be exported and it will be read as blank for the end user. So I like to get rid of those whenever possible. And so I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to delete that extra return. And you'll notice that it closed up the space between my heading and the text below it. But we can address that if you click in the heading. We can right click and go to paragraph. And then in the spacing here, right, we have spacing before and after the paragraph that I clicked on. So I'm going to add, let's add 14 points of space after that heading. And now when I click OK, you're going to see that it adds that spacing back in without having to have that extra return. The other thing you could do, and this is something that I mentioned in a previous video, if you recall, I had removed some of the boxes here, and then to kind of readjust the spacing, I added a couple of spaces. Well, this character here is a tab character, okay? And so I could copy that tab character, and I could come over here and replace it. I can replace those spaces with that tab character. Now, when I first do that, it kind of nudges everything over in kind of a weird way. But if you look up here in your ruler, this guy here is a tab stop. And so I'm going to click over here to add a tab stop at that location. And now you can see when I drag that, it allows me to adjust the spacing precisely, you know, without having to add spaces in there. And so if you wanted to make adjustments, you can do so by simply dragging these elements. I also did that down here, right? So I can go ahead and do a paste here, right? And then again, I'm going to come up here and add a tab character, and then I can make an adjustment to those items. So this is not required for sure. You know, we do not have to do this. But if you were trying to just kind of clean up your document and maybe, you know, make the adjustments a little more precise, that's something you could do to your document. One final thing I'm going to do to this document is I'm going to add a descriptive title to the document. So to do that, we can come up here to the File menu, we can choose Info, and right here where it says Title is where you can add your descriptive title. Now, I'm just going to refresh my memory. This one says Tuition Reimbursement Request and Authorization. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in here. And now when the PDF file gets exported, that will be included within the document. Now, one thing to also mention here, the Office applications make you as a personal user the author of any document you create. And we can see here that Christine is the current author of this document, which means her name is going to get attached to the PDF file when I create it. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the author and choose Remove Person. And you can go ahead and click there to add a new author if you wish. Or in my case, I think I'm just going to leave it blank. But that's going to ensure that my PDF file gets an appropriate title when I export it to the PDF format.